every man reaches a moment where something inside him finally hardens. A quiet realization settles in that peace is worth more than closeness, that love without respect isn't love at all. It's a debt that keeps growing. You were never meant to keep auditioning for someone who treats your value like a question mark, and you were never meant to forgive behavior that slowly breaks you just so you can feel chosen. Strength isn't how much pain you can tolerate. Strength is knowing where the line is and refusing to let anyone cross it. In this video, we're going to expose 10 things you should never forgive a woman for in a relationship, and more importantly, why walking away from them might be the first real act of self-respect you've ever made. There's a rule about relationships almost no one talks about. The person who fears loss the most always holds the least power. That's why manipulation feeds on forgiveness. Every time you excuse behavior that hurts you, you quietly prove you're not going anywhere. And once that's confirmed, the dynamic shifts. But here's the truth most men learn too late. Real leverage doesn't come from love, it comes from boundaries. When you understand that, the entire game changes. If you've ever wanted to understand how emotional power actually works, like this video and subscribe to Hidden Waters. Comment yes if you've ever stayed quiet just to avoid conflict, or no if you've already learned when to walk away. Because the first thing we're uncovering isn't really about her lies. It's about how easily men allow them. The first thing you should never forgive is chronic lying and the creation of alternate realities. It never begins with something dramatic. It starts small, almost harmless. She says she was at home when she wasn't. She shrugs off a suspicious message as just a friend. The price of something changes. The timeline shifts slightly. Tiny details that seem too insignificant to challenge without feeling petty. That's intentional. The first lie is never about the lie itself. It's a test, not of your intelligence, but of your boundaries. A woman who lies consistently isn't just hiding mistakes. She's slowly constructing a world where she decides what's real. Every lie you let pass teaches her that truth is optional as long as you stay calm. Once she learns you'll sacrifice truth to keep the peace, the deception escalates. What starts as small distortions becomes full stories, secret conversations, hidden accounts, carefully edited memories that leave you doubting your own perception. You stop confronting her, not because you believe her, but because arguing feels exhausting. It becomes easier to question yourself than to face what her behavior actually means. That's where manipulation takes root. Not by overpowering you, but by wearing down your certainty until you hand it over. The goal was never just to deceive you. It was to make you dependent on her version of reality. Eventually, you'll catch yourself defending her to other people. You'll minimize what you know. You'll convince yourself she has good intentions. And that's the moment control is complete, because when lying to you becomes acceptable, your truth stops mattering. And when your truth no longer matters, you're no longer in a relationship. You're living inside someone else's illusion. The second thing you should never forgive is public humiliation disguised as humor. At first it sounds innocent. A story shared at dinner, a playful jab in front of friends, a sarcastic comment followed by laughter. She smiles and says, "Relax, it's just a joke." Everyone laughs, except something inside you tightens. You smile anyway, because causing tension feels worse than swallowing the discomfort. But you know what really happened. That wasn't humor. That was positioning. When a woman repeatedly makes you the punchline in public, your mistakes, your habits, your ambitions, she's not bonding with you. She's establishing hierarchy. Every laugh she gets from others reinforces her sense of dominance. And when you finally speak up, she flips it on you. You're too sensitive. You can't take a joke. Now you're not just embarrassed. You're at fault. Psychologically, this is contempt wearing the mask of intimacy. Contempt doesn't shout. It smirks. It erodes respect slowly, one funny story at a time. Once she learns she can belittle you without consequences, respect begins to fade. And when respect disappears, love can't survive. A woman who genuinely cares about you protects your image in public. She understands that your reputation reflects the bond you share. A woman who mocks you seeks power, not partnership. So when she turns you into entertainment to elevate herself, don't laugh it off. Recognize it for what it is. That isn't humor being shared, it's contempt being revealed. And when a woman laughs at you publicly, the relationship is already deteriorating behind closed doors. The third thing you should never forgive is emotional manipulation wrapped in guilt. She doesn't yell, she doesn't threaten, she simply makes you feel wrong for having boundaries at all. If you love me, you would. You've changed. I guess I don't matter to you anymore. Every sentence is engineered to turn your empathy against you. You're no longer discussing behavior. You're defending your character. Emotional manipulation is one of the most dangerous forms of control because it hides inside vulnerability. She learns your weak points, your desire to be good, your fear of hurting someone, your instinct to protect, and she presses those buttons with precision. The tears appear at the right moment. The silence stretches just long enough. The sadness feels heavy enough to pull you back in. Because you're trying to be fair, because you value harmony, you give in. You stop saying no. You apologize for things you didn't do. You shrink your needs to make room for her emotions. What she's really teaching you is that her feelings are your responsibility, that your worth depends on how well you manage her emotional state. And once you accept that role, something critical disappears. Your right to your own feelings. You become careful, measured, afraid to speak freely. And that's how control replaces connection, quietly, without ever raising its voice. You start monitoring yourself, weighing every word, every gesture, every reaction, because the safe version of you is no longer who you are. You exist to regulate her emotions, and that isn't love, it's emotional servitude. A woman who truly loves you doesn't weaponize your empathy. She doesn't turn her pain into a tool to manipulate your actions or twist your compassion into a leash. She communicates, she reasons, she respects boundaries. Love that demands guilt isn't love, it's leverage. And the moment you feel guilty for protecting your peace, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in captivity. Love doesn't require submission. It never asks you to shrink, to apologize for standing firm, or to justify your right to exist on your own terms. If her affection hinges on your discomfort, it isn't love, it's control. Then comes boundary violation masquerading as intimacy. She insists it's care, that checking your phone, your messages, your location, or questioning your every movement is just because she loves you. She calls it transparency. She calls it closeness. But make no mistake, it's control in disguise. Every breach of privacy she gets away with teaches her that your autonomy is negotiable. What begins as curiosity slowly becomes interrogation. Worry becomes distrust. Suddenly, you're explaining every text, every call, every moment of your day as if you're on trial. In a healthy relationship, intimacy coexists with independence. You can be deeply connected while still keeping private thoughts, personal space, and freedom intact. When someone equates love with constant surveillance, you stop being a partner and start being property. Over time, you shrink. You censor yourself. Honesty becomes a liability, and the quiet confidence of being your own man fades. Love never asks you to surrender your identity, it respects the walls that protect your peace. A woman who disregards your boundaries doesn't love you, she wants ownership. And when ownership replaces respect, love cannot survive. Physical or property aggression is next, subtle at first but devastating. A slammed door, a broken glass, a shove during an argument, and then the tears, the apologies, the promises that it won't happen again. You want to believe her because admitting otherwise means acknowledging you're no longer safe. But aggression is never accidental. It's a deliberate signal. Fear is power, and power is control. Violence, whether aimed at you, your belongings, or your space, is dominance, pure and unmistakable. People don't lose control randomly. They choose when, where, and with whom to explode. She doesn't lash out at her boss or her friends. She does it to you, knowing you'll stay. The escalation is predictable. A push becomes a grab, a shove becomes a slap, the slap becomes a punch. Every act forgiven reinforces the lesson that fear works. When love turns physical, it stops being love. There is no justification, no explanation that redeems it. Real love protects. It doesn't intimidate, it doesn't coerce. If she breaks what belongs to you to assert control, Understand this. If she can destroy things today, she can destroy you tomorrow. Walk away before that day comes. Financial control and exploitation are just as insidious. In toxic dynamics, money becomes a leash wrapped in silence. At first, it's small. She forgets her wallet, borrows, and doesn't return, casually suggesting, "You're better with money anyway." Slowly, the story changes. Your earnings become shared, hers remain her freedom. It's framed as teamwork, as partnership, but it's nothing of the sort if one person bears all the weight. Financial control isn't about bills, it's about power. Your income becomes leverage. Every purchase a test, every disagreement a guilt trip. After everything I do for you, how could you spend like that? Meanwhile, she subtly undermines your career, mocks your ambitions, discourages growth. Dependence keeps people trapped longer than fear ever could. Money isn't just currency, it's freedom, independence, dignity. A woman who truly loves you doesn't seek to own your freedom, she wants to grow alongside it. Financial exploitation is not intimacy, it's leverage. And when she controls it, she controls you. Isolation from friends and family is the final thread in this web of control. It never happens suddenly. It creeps in through casual remarks. Your friends don't understand us. Your family isn't supportive. You're different when you're around them. At first, it sounds like insecurity, and you reassure her, promising balance. But over time, every outing, every visit, every conversation becomes a negotiation. Slowly, you pull back. Invitations dwindle. The people who once anchored your life fade from view. And before you realize it, your social world has contracted to the space she dictates. Isolation isn't love, it's control disguised as concern. A woman who truly values you wants you surrounded by people who support you, not cut off from everyone who reminds you of your worth outside of her. Every one of these behaviors, emotional servitude, privacy invasion, aggression, financial exploitation, isolation, teaches the same lesson: your boundaries are optional. And once that lesson is internalized, real love has no place to grow. The key isn't endurance, it's recognition. It's standing up and saying, "I will not be owned, manipulated, or diminished. My peace is not negotiable." Walking away is not failure, it is the first act of choosing yourself. Because a relationship should never cost your identity, your safety, your dignity, or your freedom. If it does, it is not love. It is control, and it is never worth forgiving. You slowly start to notice the world shrinking around you. Every visit with friends feels like a betrayal. Eventually, months pass, and you realize you haven't seen the people who used to anchor your life. She has become the only voice you hear, the only perspective you trust. Isolation is the quietest and most effective form of control because it's invisible. No one can warn you, no one can remind you of reality because she has cut them off. She'll tell you it's about spending more time together. She'll frame others as negative, jealous, or toxic influences. But what she's really doing is removing your support system, the very people who might notice manipulation before you do. Once the outside world fades, you lose perspective. Her voice becomes the measure of everything. Her reality becomes law, and you no longer know where you end, and her control begins. Emotional captivity doesn't need chains, it needs silence, obedience, and dependence. True love connects you to the world. It doesn't isolate you from it. The right woman will want to know your friends, meet your family, and stand beside you in your community. She will enhance your world, not replace it. The moment you find yourself explaining why you no longer see anyone else, that is not love protecting you. That is control enclosing you. And when she becomes your only world, you begin to vanish from your own. Then comes infidelity, and it's never an accident. Cheating is a deliberate act, a series of choices that cross boundaries, betray trust, and risk everything sacred between you for fleeting satisfaction. It begins long before the act itself: a lingering text, a conversation that drifts into places it shouldn't, a look held too long. She knows exactly what she is doing at every step, confident she won't be caught, or convinced that if she is, you'll forgive her. Infidelity is not passion, it's entitlement. It's the belief that her desires outweigh your trust, that her impulses are more important than the pain she causes. And when confronted, The excuses are always the same: rough patch, unmet needs. It didn't mean anything. But every excuse only confirms the truth. She chose selfishness over respect. Forgiveness doesn't erase this breach, because infidelity doesn't just break trust, it rewrites it. After the line is crossed, every message, every silence, every word carries suspicion. You become alert, guarding yourself against someone who should have been protecting you. A woman who betrays you has already revealed who she is, someone willing to risk your dignity for convenience. The hardest part isn't losing her. It's realizing she was never who you thought she was. Cheating is not a mistake. It is a message. Believe it. Weaponizing your vulnerabilities comes next, and it's just as cruel. It begins during moments of trust. You open up, share the fears, the insecurities, the wounds you never show anyone else. You believe intimacy is building, that your openness is safe. But she is quietly taking notes. And one day, in the heat of an argument, she strikes. The very pain you revealed in confidence becomes a weapon aimed at you. Childhood trauma, failures, past mistakes, all deployed to make you feel small, to break your defenses, to win control. This is not passion or loss of temper. It is calculated, strategic. A manipulator knows the power of exposing your wounds and will exploit them repeatedly, because nothing consolidates control like making someone bleed from their own truth. The cost is more than anger. It is silence. You stop sharing, stop trusting, start guarding every thought, every emotion. The relationship may appear alive, but emotionally, it is dead. Intimacy cannot exist where safety has been violated. Real love shelters your wounds. It never weaponizes them. When confessions are turned into knives, the person who does it stops being your partner and becomes your adversary. Finally, there is the abuse, apology, love bombing cycle, the most dangerous of all because it feels like love. She hurts you, verbally, emotionally, through contempt and control, and then rushes in to soothe the wound with tears, apologies, and promises of change. Suddenly, she's affectionate again, cooking your favorite meal, whispering how much she needs you. For a moment, it feels like relief, like peace has returned. You tell yourself this time will be different, but it never is. It is just the calm before the next storm. This is trauma bonding. The brain confuses relief with love, and you start craving affection, not because it is genuine, but because it stops the pain. The highs she controls become addictive, and she knows it. The next outburst, the next insult, the next apology comes faster, sharper, crueler, until you can no longer discern where love ends and damage begins. This isn't evolution, it's entrapment. She is not healing the wound, she is deepening her hold over it. Every one of these behaviors, isolating you, betraying your trust, exploiting your vulnerabilities, cycling abuse and affection, is a lesson in control. They teach the same cruel truth. Your boundaries, your peace, your independence, and your dignity are negotiable unless you choose otherwise. Real love doesn't demand sacrifice of identity. It doesn't twist your kindness into a leash. It doesn't weaponize your pain or limit your world. It nurtures, protects, and grows alongside you. Walking away from someone who violates these truths isn't weakness or failure. It's the first act of reclaiming yourself. Because a relationship should never cost who you are, how safe you feel, or the freedom you deserve. If it does, it isn't love. It is control, and it is never worth forgiving. She's keeping it open just enough for you to stay, leaving a space that feels like hope, because as long as you're waiting for the good version of her to return, you'll never leave. Healthy love doesn't work that way. It doesn't require recovery periods or grand gestures to erase harm. It doesn't destroy you one day and adore you the next. So don't confuse an apology with real change. Don't mistake sudden affection for safety. She isn't transforming. She's resetting the trap. Forgiving what should never be forgiven doesn't make you noble. It makes you vanish. Every time you excuse a lie, a humiliation, a betrayal or manipulation, you chip away at the man you once were. You tell yourself it's compassion, understanding, or maturity, but what it really is surrender, piece by piece, until there's nothing left to defend. You can't love someone into respecting you. You can't fix someone who finds power in your pain. You can't negotiate with someone who thrives on your forgiveness. Real love doesn't demand endurance. It doesn't test how much you can take before you break. Real love values your peace, not your suffering. Staying with someone who crosses these lines doesn't just cost trust, it costs you. You become a shadow, always apologizing, always explaining, always waiting for the next apology that will never carry meaning. Your silence becomes complicity. Your endurance becomes permission. Eventually, she won't even need to ask for forgiveness because you'll already be giving it. Leaving is different. Leaving isn't failure, it's recognition. It's choosing yourself over chaos, self-respect over illusion. It's reclaiming the time and energy you've been giving to someone who never deserved it. And when you walk away, something powerful happens. You remember who you were before you started shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. If this message stirs something in you, don't stay silent. Comment and share your story, not to shame, but to help another man recognize himself before it's too late. Share this with someone who's forgetting his worth. And subscribe, because this space isn't about bitterness or hate. It's where men remember who they are. You don't need to forgive the unforgivable. You need to free yourself from it.